All right, good morning, everybody. Sung Paik, I'm Vice President of AI Go-to-Market North America and Field CTO. Long history in developing software and implementing software, selling software in the technology industry. And really excited to talk with you today. It really is around how to minimize this AI adoption, frankly, these days. And the reality is our approach is not necessarily to default to AI, because maybe AI might not be what might help you. We work with a lot of manufacturers, and many times it's really not a data issue or even an AI issue, it's a visibility issue primarily. That's where things tend to start. I'm going to share some stories around that. And so one of our catchphrases here is prescription before diagnosis is malpractice, in medicine as well as in business, frankly, because if somebody's got an AI hammer and everything's in a nail, then certainly that's going to be the default, right? We don't want to do that. And the reality is AI itself is not magic. It certainly depends on the definitions that you have in AI. I've been in computer science a long time as well as business side, and there's so many varieties of it. And so how can somebody say that just AI is going to help when they don't even know what the problem is? Can you imagine going to a doctor, for your annual physical, and they say, hey, yeah, good to see you. Here's some pills. See you next year. That'd be horrible. I would run away. I'm sure you would too. And so if somebody says, hey, AI will fix all your issues and worries, that's a little concerning. So the reality is the AI chasm is real. And this is not the first time this has happened. In every technological topic that comes up, whether it's cloud, whether it's other things, this just is a phenomenon in the corporate world. And what you have is a lot of hype, and there's even analysts that coined it, they call it the hype cycle. And so there's a lot of hype about things. We just, as a species, get excited about stuff, which is a great thing. It's a double-edged sword. And then there's folks like you all that actually have to live with this stuff and say, hey, does this really make sense? Am I going to spend money on this? Am I going to put my reputation on the line to be able to actually say, yeah, this new thing's going to work? I heard it at a conference. No, the reality is there needs to be some due diligence about what's going on. And so this is where we feel from a business and pragmatic perspective, it's really prudent to just think about how these things work. And there's a phrase that says, wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes. And so this survey, it's just like a lot of surveys out there, but I really like it because it just shares, well, what have other people done? And so MIT did this survey back in October, and it has a lot of themes that these other surveys have done, right? And it's over like 10,000 people, so it's a good sample set and really statistically sound. And the reality is, it's not a surprise. 95% of these AI pilots fail. But I always like to ask the other question. Well, what about the 5% that succeeded? How does that work? Okay, and the reality is, it just comes down to this. It comes down to the fact that these organizations realize, and this is across many verticals, by the way, they realize that, hey, we kind of don't know what this AI stuff is. Our IT people, great people, but they're not a software company, right? They're not going to be able to stay on top of this material 24/7 all the time. It's just too much, and especially at the pace of change. And so we need to work with specialized vendors that actually have expertise in this. And so it's not dissimilar to a lot of things in life, right? You're good at what you do, but you're certainly not good at what you don't do. So why not partner with organizations like that? And that led to success 2/3 of the time. Furthermore, when you actually start to think about how is it that they're going about this, the internal builds, the challenges there is that they tended to focus, the companies that is, on these really ambitious use cases, because they went to conferences. They said, hey, AI will solve everything. Okay, great, let's do it. Let's spend a few $1 million. And that was like 2-3 years ago, and those things failed. And so the whole lesson is partner with specialized firms that can help you because they know certain things about technology and techniques and maybe verticals, but then also be really pragmatic in terms of what you're actually going to attack first, in terms of use cases, back office use cases, things that can get you quick wins. Because let's face it, I've been on the customer side too. You're putting yourself at a lot of risk by taking these ambitious use cases, and you just don't know if it's actually going to pan out, right? And so this sounds obvious now, but 2 years ago it didn't. And so that this is where this is the survey. This is not even just from our personal experience. This is the reality of learning from other people's mistakes, okay? So let's talk about some real-world use cases. This is our customer, one of many in manufacturing, Prima Dental. So let me set the stage. They're a manufacturer, a global leader in producing these wonderful things that dentists use. They're drill bits, there's cleaning utensils, right? The little mirrors, we all go to the dentist, and all those things they put in your mouth. Well, somebody's got to make that, and that's precision manufacturing. In fact, Prima Dental had more business than they can deal with. Their challenge was not lack of business. Their challenge was meeting the demand of output. And so the reality is that they couldn't add any more factory floor space, right? They weren't going to just spend tens of millions of dollars to stand up a new factory, right? That wasn't going to pan out financially in terms of return on investment in the immediate future. And they've got over 150 CNC machines. And there is not one lick of space to add another one. So their problem is, how do we get more output? How do we get more yield from the existing machines that we have? We were the fourth vendor that came in there and finally able to help, thankfully, right? And so there's a lot of value to go around. And the reality is that what we're able to do, and you can come see us at the booth, is be able to actually analyze what's going on their factory floors. Those 150 plus CNC machines, we were able to get the data through their PLCs and create a repository and then apply these manufacturing use cases to do root cause analysis, to do quality checks, to do all these things that are very specific to the operators so that we empower them. And this is not some whiz-bang fantastical story. It's just helping the operators. You can see by that quote, that's actually what led to the success. I love what Sophia was talking about earlier. It's by talking to the people on the front lines, that's where the value comes from. And they appreciate it because it was an enabler. It wasn't dictated down to them. It was actually empowering them. The operators love using DataQI because it makes them better at their jobs, right? Everybody, we're all humans. We all have pride. They want to be very proud of what they do. They do great work. And so if we're able to empower them with that, that's fantastic. I can tell you right now, with a straight face, there's no generative AI in this use case. There's no agent systems in this use case. This is just a matter of getting the data so that we can provide these operators the visibility to do things on their own and not have to stop that CNC machine, not have to stop that production line and then call maintenance, right? You all face downtime issues, and that costs big money. So why not start at these use cases that you can get a quick win and then be able to grow with these fantastic technologies leveraged appropriately with regards to GenAI, agents, robotic process automation, all this other stuff, right? It's a journey. It's not a sprint. So hopefully that resonated, because now part of this is that it really reminds me of this story. This story's been around for decades. It certainly probably precedes me, and I'm 50. The reality is this engineer's invoice story applies so great here, because the engineer's invoice story is exactly a manufacturer story where the production line stopped because this big old machine, part of the critical path, shut down, right? And this is classic bottlenecks. If you remember reading in college, I do, Goldratt, that book, Theory of Constraints. That's exactly what this is talking about. The reality is that this company couldn't figure it out. Operators couldn't figure it out, management couldn't figure it out, leadership couldn't figure it out. They eventually had to call the manufacturer of this big old machine and get their senior engineer in here. And within 5 minutes, that engineer was listening to the machine, walking around, analyzing, brain was cranking, took out a piece of chalk, put a big old X right on that panel. Said, replace what's behind here with a new part, it'll work just fine. And sure enough, it did. And the reality is that's great because the customer was back up, right? What a great fable. And there's a lot of value there. Here's the punchline. Is that engineer sent an invoice the next week. It was $10,000. The customer was like, holy cow, $10,000. He was just here 5 minutes. The explanation was, yeah, I was here 5 minutes. It only cost $1 to write that X on that panel, but it cost the rest of the $10,000 to know draw that X. Right? Great story. I love reminding myself of that constantly. Because wouldn't it be fantastic to have a system that could actually be that engineer? What if you could have a virtual version of that engineer at every one of your organizations? And that's what we're talking about. Is that what does great look like? Forget about DataQI. Forget about all the vendors in the world. Just what would you want in your company as a manufacturer? You just want to see more. You just want to see what's going on, right? The visibility. You got gobs of data. We're talking to a prospect and saying, data's not my problem. We collect a lot of data. We just don't know what to do with it, how to analyze it, how to get these insights out of it. See more. See what's going on with those CNC machines, as Prima Dental will say. And then know more. Hey, I'd like to actually understand what's going on. I'd like to have a system I can just ask normal plain language questions to, and it actually gives me answers back. That'd be kind of nice. Hey, what does that error code mean? An operator can actually look it up themselves versus actually having to stop and look at a manual or a PDF. Can you imagine finding the right PDF these days, right? That is a struggle. Do more. Well, it'd be nice if there was some sort of system out there that could help me automate the mundane stuff, like let's say incident reports or summaries or shift overviews of what's going on. Like it'd be nice if all this could happen, and it'd be nice if it could all happen securely. Right? It'd be nice if we could actually get data from all of our machines, not just the digital ones, but the analog ones, the ones where you don't have a PLC interface there. Right? That'd be nice. Okay, great. So we built a platform for that. That's exactly what we did. This is DataQI, a manufacturing optimization solution, a brand new category. We created it. And the reality is that manufacturers have wonderful systems, MES systems, MOM systems, but what about that area around optimization? It was like decades of trying to apply data analytics, but that tends to be reactive. You can't really do a lot of drill down analysis for root cause or Pareto bottleneck analysis or preventative maintenance, right? And so there was a need in the marketplace for this manufacturing optimization solution, complementing your MES, complementing your MOM, getting data from your machines, your ERPs, etc. That's what this is. Made for manufacturers by manufacturers. We have people that worked at large manufacturers, small to medium business enterprises, manufacturers. All that knowledge is going into here. See more, know more, do more. That's where we're able to incorporate that here. And a matter of fact, we even apply computer vision technologies for various customers. Like we've got a customer that they get orders of 30 to 40,000 of these rolling bins for warehouses. Right? Like, and they have axles. They have two axles. One has a brake assembly. They're like, man, if we could shave some time off of the assembly of these bins in total, that'd be fantastic. So where are you getting a lot of bottlenecks? What is unknown to you? Well, these axle assemblies, especially the brake axle assembly, we don't know what goes on in there. We just know how many are made per shift, and it's really inconsistent. Here's the punchline. We set up a computer vision rig with cameras, and we applied the solutions there to be able to track every step of that process, and then we digitized it. Well, how long did that step take? How long did that step take? How long did that step take? Right? It's all digital. And now we all of a sudden a human assembly process, we were able to get data out of it. And that data helped the organization realize that the operator there, the human assembler, they were getting stuck on a few spots. They did some further investigation. Turns out those little parts there, they just weren't made very well. Right? They were trying to squeeze these little bushings onto the axles and et cetera, et cetera. There's several different instances of that. Turns out, took that feedback, went back to engineering, design. Hey, just made it a little bit bigger so they could slide it on easier. Pretty easy fix. But unless you actually saw that with the computer vision use case and being able to have that visibility to see more, to allow you to know more and do more, right? That's the key right there. And so it's tremendous value. Shave 30 seconds off of every single brake axle assembly. 30 seconds. You take 30,000 units, 40,000 units times 30 seconds. That's a lot of time. And you're able to deliver faster for the customer. Okay? So that's the power of a manufacturing optimization solution. And timing's everything in terms of your customer AI journey. I can tell you from years of being on the customer side, the sales side, a lot of vendors got it backwards. You know, they're talking about downstream topics like, hey, we'll sell you this AI factor to solve all your needs. You don't even know my use cases yet, right? You've probably faced that. Oh, this AI software will solve everything. From a consultative perspective, the really important part as a business person is to understand what the heck am I trying to achieve as a company? What are my priorities, regardless of technology? What are the outcomes we're actually striving for? Because that actually will drive the use cases. And then actually one can logically and pragmatically look at the technology stack that's appropriate. That's the right process. I'm just here to say. Because everybody's got it backward, not everybody, but a lot of people have had it backwards for the past couple of years, and they're starting from the GPUs going upstream, as if a bunch of GPUs are going to solve your problems. As manufacturers, you understand if you've got a broken process, just throwing technology at it is not going to make it better. It's just a more expensive process that you just waste a lot of money on. Right? And we know that too. We've been there. We've been in your shoes. We just want to relate that to you. I'm almost done. So innovation sprints, where does this come into play? This comes into play with regards to what we were talking about earlier, you know, the 95% failures, 5% successes, be able to take things at bite-sized chunks. That's what the innovation sprint is. It's simply a proof of value, if I'm being really real about it. But the important part is this. Validate before you go for a full build, okay? Like, good luck to you if you actually don't do any validation or proof of value and you just want to spend $5 million and see if this AI thing will work. Good luck. You know, pretty career-limiting decision, I can tell you. The reality is an innovation sprint, 6 to 8 weeks, nominal cost, $25,000, $50,000-ish, right? We're not trying to take all your money. We actually want to help you prove something out from a critical path engineering perspective, okay? It's not just software. It could be actually mechanical engineering. It could be actually a lot of things in terms of connecting and using a lot of skills and disciplines to figure out a problem solution, computer vision, etc. But the point is that why not prove out that critical path? Because that's going to provide you a great foundation for a business case. To actually show a quick win, show potential ROI, what the technology stack is, and then project that with our help on what that could look like from a full build perspective. That's our recommendation. We've seen it work over and over again. That quote on the bottom there, one of the largest aircraft manufacturers that we partnered with this organization on, that we were able to figure out with fan blades why they were melting at different elevations. Innovation sprint. Try to figure it out. The customer said, it's impossible. We tried everything. Well, the reality is with an innovation sprint, it's quick, it's nimble. It's not going to cost you a lot of money, and then we can actually figure it out with you. So with that said, there's more information on our YouTube channel. We'd love for you to check it out. We've got use case videos for manufacturing, from reducing downtime, improving quality, all these types of things, preventative maintenance, all the top things you guys care about, IoT. And I'll end on this here. Feel free to visit us at the booth. We'd love to talk with you. We have a demo. We've got some props there to show you how these things connect in the factory floor, as well as be able to share with you how this could apply to your organization. Okay. So thanks so much for your time. I'll leave you at that.